Welcome. This is Damon Brown. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV. I'm an entrepreneurial coach. I help you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV. This is episode 412, 411. We'll get to it in a second. I've been hanging out with y'all for a while. I appreciate y'all. Going on 4.5 years of hanging out with y'all, mostly live on Wednesdays, but occasionally on Saturdays. I'm sorry, not Saturdays, Sundays. Where I've recorded an episode. It's been so much fun. Thank you to the sponsors who have come through. I appreciate all of y'all. Come to you Wednesdays live at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free. If you're watching on the main channel at bringyourworth.tv, you can just click subscribe, or you can go click the link below. Or if you're watching, hey, if you're watching on Twitch, you can follow me on there. I used to be a video game guy, so I feel where you are coming from. Go ahead and follow me over there. And you can follow and catch up on the older episodes over on Spotify. Shout out to Spotify. My latest book is the complete Bring Your Worth collection. It features, I think it's 7 books. I always forget this. Been a lot of books. It's actually the 27th book. This actually contains books, hence it being the collection, including The Ultimate Bikes as Entrepreneur, which y'all made a bestseller. Thank you. As well as Bring Your Worth, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World, which is Build From Now, which is the one after that. All of it good stuff. A lot of them are bestsellers. Thanks so much. There's really a gift to y'all. I know there's about 18,000 plus of y'all that have subscribed since the show began over the last, again, 4.5 years ago. And what I wanted to do is, I've been doing books and been a business coach for a long time. You might be able to see some of the grace. And so, with that in mind, a lot of y'all might not be up on the work and want to learn more about it. Is a great place to start. Has almost all my business books. I actually have some fun stuff happening a little bit later on related to that. But thank you for all the love and support. If you're in the journalism community or if you're interested in writing in particular, a great opportunity is coming up. It's going to be later on this month. I believe it's February 27th, 28th. So I think it's a couple weekends from now. It's coming up really soon. It's called the Institute for Independent Journalism Conference. This is their third or fourth conference. It's founded by Catherine X. Lewis, Reynolds Lewis, and she's fantastic. I've known her for years. We've been colleagues for a long time. She's really supporting the kind of independent journalism from independent freelancers like myself, as well as people who are contracted for organizations. It's a wild time. I can't speak for where you are at, but here in America, or I'd say even North America, it's a wild time. I have 2 degrees in journalism, master's in magazine publishing. The media is necessary, way more necessary than ever. I know I say that all the time. We say it all the time, but it's real talk. And so the idea of truth and the idea of representing different cultures in different parts, particularly here in America, is so essential, so essential. This conference is here to support you in that regard. They are my homies. I was able to go ahead and get a discount for y'all exclusively because you can tell it's exclusive because it's my name, DAMON. But you can go ahead and use the exclusive code to get a discount on that weekend of programming. I think you also will be able to go into the vault and access the programming, I think, well into the future, if not download it. Don't quote me on that, no pun intended. But check out the link, see what's happening, tell them I sent you. And early bird pricing is done, obviously, because it's going to happen like weekends from now, but it's still a really good discount. I believe it's going to be all online, so no matter which situation where you're at, I got 2 little kids at home. Now they're growing up, they're like 8 and 11. But if you're in a similar situation, like a lot of people that I coach, where you have people that are dependent on you, it's designed so that you don't have to be there the whole time. You're not gonna miss anything. You understand? So you have the opportunity to get involved. Check it out if you have not already. Exactly a week ago, in case you missed it, how to rest at home, a live Q&A. A lot of y'all chimed in. It was so fun. Actually, wore my robe. No indecent exposure, but wore my robe last time. And we just chit chatted about ways that we can actually develop our culture, our culture as far as our business, as far as our family, as far as our home, into a culture that's conducive to resting. If we're able to rest, then we're able to show up better. And I quoted a whole lot of my favorite folks, including Dr. Tricia Hersey behind the NAP Ministry and other folks who have showed up really well to show us that resting should not be something that's shamed, but also if we're able to rest, two things happen. Number one, we're able to slow down enough to understand the best strategy as well as the most empathetic and sympathetic way to connect with other people. And number two, we're able to be more effective when we actually get some rest. Something to think about. Definitely tune into the show after this. I think you'd appreciate it. And over the weekend, what I alluded to as far as there sometimes being Sunday programming. Of course, this last weekend here in America, it was Super Bowl Sunday. We had the awesome Kendrick Lamar doing the halftime show. He did not disappoint, in my humble opinion. And so ended up being a fantastic conversation between that being the best halftime show or 2007, almost 20 years ago, hard to believe, from the master Prince. I end up creating a playlist that has not only the respective episodes that shows the almost like a retrospective of the amazing career of Prince and the amazing career of Kendrick Lamar so far, but also includes in the playlist, it includes the 2007 halftime show from Prince, and of course, the one that just happened with Mr. Kendrick Lamar in New Orleans. Shout out to my NOLA folks that happened on Sunday. All edited, uncut, official. Go and check it out. If you missed the halftime shows or if you never saw the Prince one, go and click on the link right there after we're done talking. In fact, I might throw it up as a suggested thing afterwards. Today, we're going to do some light conversation. Disaster preparedness for entrepreneurs. It's been an amazingly intense time. Speaking of NOLA, I was there when Katrina hit. I was living down there. And so a lot of the stuff that's happening now with the LA fires, um, with the extremes of weather like hurricanes and so forth, shout out to my folks in North Carolina with Helene and so forth, all those things happening. And frankly, the climate crisis, which I think is probably becoming pretty obvious now, we have a problem, we've had a problem. That brings us to us. I'm originally from South Jersey. Shout out to Atlantic City, where I'm from. Shout out to my folks over in Camden, which is right next to Philly. You know they're partying right now as I speak with the Eagles. Speaking of the Super Bowl, shout out to them. But I had my teenage years in Michigan, and if you're in any part of Michigan, pretty much, then you're going to have some extreme weather. It's going to be some tornadoes. It's going to be some heavy snow. I learned I have a early fall, late summer birthday, and so by the time I was able to drive, then I was basically learning to drive in the snow, and got into a couple accidents when I was 16, just because of black ice and all those things. My whole point is that there's the things that I grew up with because I was in Michigan. Now they're becoming commonplace everywhere else. People decide to move to Michigan. People decide to move to Alaska. People decide to move to Florida. People decide to move to Louisiana, shout out to New Orleans, and have those experiences. Now it's becoming more commonplace with again with the LA fires, with the climate crisis. The second part of this, though, is that unlike my storied childhood when I was a teenager in Michigan, there are no snow days as an adult. You still got to take care of your kids or any dependents that you might have. You still need to go and get your food right. You still need to take care of your employees. And most importantly, depending on the type of work that you do, not only will you be expected to show up as an entrepreneur, even when the weather's not to your liking, you might actually have to step up in a higher level. If you think about the when the pandemic hit, speaking of crises, when the pandemic hit a good almost 5 years ago now, 5 years ago, where everyone got locked down officially in March, which it's amazing how time flies, the same year that we started this show. And you think about the distributors that used to sell spirits or liquor, and they end up turning into what do you call them? Hand sanitizer companies. The folks that used to make T-shirts, and then suddenly they're able to change that into masks. There's a certain amount of flexibility that you need to have when it comes to changes that are beyond your control. Now, we need to have them in general as entrepreneurs. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. We'll put it like that. And I've coached entrepreneurs for years, the hundreds of y'all that I've coached. That's already part of the game. Like you need to have a level of flexibility. I decided to do this episode today though because sometimes those the flexibility gets turned up. needing to show up more. Again, my aforementioned book, Built From Now, I did that in the middle of the pandemic, or actually when we were in the thick of it. It came out in January of 2021, 2022. And so we were in the thick of it. Things were heavy. Homeschooling, my two kids. And so one was in kindergarten, one was in third grade, second grade. It was a mess. It was a mess. But I knew that as a coach, that I needed to, and as an author, I needed to get something to y'all because I know you knew you were struggling like I was. So I just show up, even though I have my own stuff going on. That's what occurs when you're an entrepreneur. We're showing up in a certain way, no matter what else is happening in the world. And sometimes, as in the case of Built From Now, which is about how you can show up in times of crisis and still be your authentic self, sometimes as entrepreneurs, that's when things actually turn up. That's when our proof of concept, for lack of a better term, shows up. If you have a certain product or service or good, it might be in those times of disaster or of challenge when the real purpose of that, maybe even your real purpose, shows up. But that doesn't matter if your business falls apart and you're not backed up properly when things like this happen. So today we're going to talk about ways that you can make your business more disaster proof. We might get into the physical things in a future episode. Today we're a little bit more into the whether it's having backups for your software or making sure that your business and its hardware, its actual contents are backed up. We might do a future episode when it talks about having a lantern and backup power devices and things of that nature. But this isn't that episode. We're actually going to get more into the software product and general side of it, and hopefully it'll be useful to everybody. So the first question that I think we need to address is how do I back up my excuse me, sorry, sinus day to day. How do I back up my goods and services? I think there's a couple of things that you want to think about. Number one is the size or the amount that you actually need to back up. Do you need to back up a whole bunch of stuff and a bunch of memory and things like that, and photos and videos, or is it like a bunch of documents? Big difference. I know in my own career, again, my background is in journalism, 2 degrees in magazine publishing. That's or a degree in master's in magazine publishing, 2 degrees, not 2 degrees in magazine, but one is good enough. But over time, that has changed. It's evolved. So it used to be me writing for Playboy or New York Post or ARP, the magazine, or Family Circle. And my business was just me interviewing people, which I might need an audio backup of or tape. I do go back that far, a tape backup, maybe on a CD, CDIs. Shout out if you remember what a CDI is, those kinds of things. But most of the backup and what my goods and services composed of was me literally writing into a Word document or whatever page maker or whatever happened to be hot at the time. So just the language of it, the stories, and then perhaps backups again of the interviews that I had with the thousands of articles that I did. Some of those might have to be in digital form, but previously they might have been in tape form. My own career evolved into me working with y'all. And part of that is this show. This show, each episode of the show takes up a gigabyte of memory. And so this episode 411. So it's at least a gigabyte of memory because this is in 720p and or 4K depending on the episode. So we're talking about these massive files. And some of these files are quite a few, like a couple dozen gigabytes. So the first thing you want to do is figure out what kind of stuff are you having to back up. For me, I transformed from being a journalist, which my backup was as simple as a few gigabytes of old stories, to now where one of the main things I do is hang out with you at bringyourworth.tv. With that in mind, then my backup is way more robust. We're talking in the hundreds of gigabytes. Again, if the average episode is at least 1 gigabyte, and this episode 411, we're talking we're talking 500 gigabytes off the rip. And so if we're working with that kind of work, and that'll be like a half a terabyte for you techies out there, so a half a TB. So number one, you want to figure out how much exact storage you actually need and what kind of storage it is. I think it's a really important part of it. The second part of it is figuring out how long you actually need to keep this. Now, for tax purposes and stuff like that, I think here in America, at least for my tax consultants that I've talked to over the years that I've worked with, then usually you need to keep your receipts and things like that for up to no more than 7 years. So I think it's a 7 year window as I speak, a 7 year window for a potential audit from the IRS, Internal Revenue Service here in America, or whatever your respective thing might be. Again, I'm not a law, I'm not a lawyer, nor am I CPA or a tax consultant, so please don't quote me on that. But whatever happens to be the case in your business, you see how I can spout that quickly? Because that's connected to my business in the country, city, and state that I live in. So you should know those kinds of things. We'll get into that a little bit more later. So number one is figuring out what kind of material you need to save and back up. And number two, how long you need to back it up. It might be that you need to back it up forever. It might be that, oh, I need to back it up just for a little while. Or it might be things that you pass on to a client and then they move on and go from there. The main thing we want to do is to, if there's a fire, a hurricane, a tornado, any of those things that are happening, even if it ends up being a man-made disaster, or ends up being like an accident in your home or in your office, or in my case, I actually have a home office, those kinds of things, your stuff is protected because you have these great opportunities as an entrepreneur to show up and to support those that want to support your business. But if something happens and a crisis happens and you're not able to have a good backup of your stuff, you can't serve the people that you committed to serving, the people that want to be served. And like I said at the top of the show, sometimes it's in these very moments where we're needed the most. And it'll be a shame. Third part of that, excuse me, which I think is really important, is that so many of y'all, including myself, we're solopreneurs. We're it. So if I don't back up my stuff, I don't have business. If I want to do a retrospective of the best episodes of Bring Your Worth TV, which I did over the holidays while I was on break, and something happened to my backups, and I'll get into the nitty gritty of my backups. Something happened to my backups, or da da da, fire happened, whatever, and the episodes disappeared. There might be a version on YouTube or another platform, but that right, the masters are gone. Masters as in the music industry, not another type of master. Those originals are gone. That's on me because I'm the head of my business. So you need to take that very, very seriously. As you look into what kind of stuff you want to do, I have some great recommendations that I use. First one by far is Dropbox. Dropbox is great. Shout out to Drew Houston. Hope you're doing fantastic. Dropbox is really, really simple. It does a cloud duplicate. So I think we're familiar with cloud at the point. So basically, it means there's some type of computer, you can call it a computer, somewhere else, and there's a duplicate of what's currently on your hard drive, what you've saved. Something happens to your computer, and I'm looking at my laptop right now, that's why I'm looking down. Something happens to your computer, then you're able to ping it, give it a message, and say, hey, I'm going to need my stuff back. And it's like, great, we saved it 9 a.m. this morning. Let's get it back to you. You get your new computer, it downloads. It literally just happened to me 2, 3 summers ago, where I was vacationing with my family. It was a mini family reunion because the safety protocols that lifted up just a little bit with um, with COVID, so we were able to see each other a bit. So we had this mini family reunion. It was on the beach, and there happened to be a heavy beach storm, not beach storm, thunderstorm on the beach, and it hit the place that we were renting, and it shorted out everything, including my laptop. It's and I'd already been doing the show, so it's probably 2022, and so I had to come home, and I was like, okay, I have a show in a few days, and I think I was doing the show twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays, and I was like, all right, well, maybe I want to have a show this week because I can't access my stuff. Yeah, but again, I met Drew many, many years ago when he was part of Y Combinator. When I lived in San Francisco, he's the co-founder of Dropbox. And so I've been a Dropbox member user forever. I'm thinking since 2012, 2000, 2010, let's say. So I've been a user of Dropbox regularly for at least 15 years minimum. My whole point is that it's not as a flex, but more like it's reliable. And when I came back, I used Apple. So I went to the Apple store and grabbed a new laptop and then got it back. I was still traveling, got it back, got it back to my family's place, and then went in, downloaded, I got on the internet, downloaded the Dropbox app. There's a little app that automatically saves things for you. Download the Dropbox app again. Luckily, I have my passwords and my mind and so forth. Got in, and I was like, "New computer, please download." And then I would say by evening, I might have let it run overnight. Then all the stuff was back in my hard drive. And luckily, I was able to get my old laptop fixed because it got shot. But it was nice to be able to have that backup. That's what Dropbox does. This makes sense for so many different reasons. Those of us that are creators, if you watch some of the older episodes, I've told the story of me being in New Orleans, shout out to New Orleans, living there, working on my first major book called Porn and Pong, How Grand Theft Auto, Tomb Raider, and Other Sexy Games Changed Our Culture. Shout out to y'all if you remember me from that time. And yeah, I was well into the manuscript. It was a particular chapter I was working on, and the book took me 5 years. So each chapter of the 10 chapters was some intense work. And my hard drive just decided to die one day. And this was in 2004. Dropbox didn't exist. So there was no backup. And luckily, I think I only did a little bit of work on it, and then I was able to piece together most of it from memory. But that's scary. You're working on a project for 5 years and it's suddenly gone. So I'm not just talking. It's like after decades in the game, you learn this the hard way. Either you learn it because you listen to someone like me who's been through it, and you're like, okay, I'll back up my stuff now, or you learn it the hard way. And there's great works of art that have been lost. Shout out to Madlib, who the very popular hip hop producer. If you know, you know. If you don't know him, that's okay. But he's one of the masters of the game, and he lost his record collection in the LA fires. That makes me grieve for many, many different levels. Yeah, I can't even get into it too deep because that'll be a whole nother episode. But you have stuff happening like that. He had a physical collection because it's records, but we have the opportunity, particularly if we have digital things, to back things up. And of course, we can back up things from record, but that's another episode. My point is that we have this great opportunity right now to go ahead and take care of our stuff if we're willing to do it. Speaking of that, on my email newsletter at joindamon.me, I talk about this briefly. You can join it for free over at joindamon.me. It's every Wednesday morning. I talk a little bit more about being prepared before you have to be. So if you want to go deeper on the subject, you want some reading to do, go and check it out. I have some good links in there as well. Another one I'd recommend is called Shoebox. Shoebox, as I was hinting at, um, if you're going to do, if Dropbox is focused on your digital only goods, Shoebox is a great way to work with your physical only goods. Shoebox, the name, which I love the name, fantastic name. The name goes back to when we would have receipts or piece of paper, even baby pictures. Shout out to my late grandmother, rest in peace. When we'd have those pictures, we would put them in a shoebox and maybe put them under our bed or put them in the closet, right? That's the old school generation for doing that. That wasn't part of my generation, but definitely my parents and above, and obviously my grandmother. Maybe y'all can relate. Maybe y'all still do it, depending on the culture that you're from. Shoebox is the equivalent of that, except it does it digitally. So you got your receipts, you got not so much baby pictures, but things from your business. You have things that you're certified in. You have things that you need for customers. Depending on the type of business you have, you might have a certain rating or certification that you need to keep on hand. Shoebox does great with that. As with Dropbox, I have a special deal with them, so you'll get a discount if you go through my link. Be sure and check them out, particularly with tax season coming here in the United States. Another suggestion, Western Digital, my favorite company for them, but you need some type of backup hard drive, something. I meant to bring mine out. Mine is actually put away right now, but a couple times a year, in fact, I'm due right now, so I'm glad I'm doing this episode. I will go and back up everything. Yes, I use Dropbox. Yes, I rock with Shoeboxed, but I have some type of backup, physical backup where I have it on me. Now I'm not taking it with me. It's not like the vault codes or anything, or like the red button, but it's something where again I go and I download all that stuff and then I put it away. It's not sitting here next to my coffee. It's not sitting here where my kids can mess with it. So essentially, I have three different versions of everything I'm working on. I have upcoming episodes of Bring Your Worth TV. I have manuscripts I'm working on. I actually do a lot of ghostwriting. All that stuff is on the hard drive. There's a copy in Dropbox, so that makes two versions of it. And then there's also a copy on the hard drive, which makes three versions. So if Dropbox, which it has not, but if something happened to Dropbox, so the stuff on my computer and on the external hard drive. If something happens to the external hard drive, because I've moved a lot over the years, something happens to it, it's fine. Got it on Dropbox and on my computer. So there is a chance that all three of those things could happen. But I like the favor of those odds. So finding ways to work on it right now, and in fact, that I think one of the reasons why I was thinking about doing this episode, not only because LA fires and with the hurricanes and so forth that have been happening, but also too, I think it's time for me to upgrade my hard drive. And so now, again, I'm even going through that transition, which we'll talk about a little bit later, as far as realizing, oh, my business is expanding, the type of work I'm doing is different. Again, this episode 411 of Bring Your Worth TV. You can imagine the amount of gigabytes of episodes that I have, and even stuff that's on the cutting room floor. Because what you get is often edited. So that means there's raw footage just sitting there, and that takes up lots and lots of gigabytes. So recognizing in this year, I'm in a different place than I was when I got the hard drive a handful of years ago to do it externally. But I love the brand. I've always trusted the brand. I've been working with them for a while as far as having them back up my stuff. Use the link, and I think there's some sales going on with that. So, what about y'all? How are y'all backing up your goods and services? Are you nervous about not having your goods services backed up? Are you backing up enough? And how has that changed over the years? Did you used to keep a whole bunch of stuff on memory and now you don't do it as much? Is it a case of you used to have a lot of paper and now you're going digital? Let me know in the comments, even if you're watching the replay. I love to hear. And you might give some insight that will help other people that are viewing. I'm entrepreneur coach Damon Brown, here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. And you can subscribe to Bring Your Worth TV for free at your favorite platform. So, how do I back up my business entity? What I mean by that is protecting, however abstract it might sound, protecting your ability to do business. If there were another person that were going to do, or another organization that was going to do exactly what you did, would you have any recourse with that? If there was another type of physical or man-made disaster that wiped out your building and wiped out all the records that you have as far as a business that you're doing, would you be able to build it up in the same way? Would you be able to protect your entity if other people tried to use it? I think about this all the time. I think you should as well. And even though I'm a business coach and I've been doing business for a little while, there's still areas where I'm like, oh, I need to tighten that up. In fact, there were things I was thinking about as I was preparing for this episode where I'm like, oh, yeah, that was on my to do list. Let's tighten up a little bit more. So it's not a matter of saying, I'm going to do everything possible to protect everything with my business, and then it'll be, some code of silence, perfectly, perfectly ramparted foundational thing, and nothing will happen to my business. That's not realistic. When you start your business, it might be from your kitchen table. It might be you and a friend just messing around, and then you come up with this idea and it turns gold. It might be a thing that just starts with you messing around on a camera or on your laptop, and then it becomes a thing. So it's a matter of checking in and figure out when it becomes a thing. There's some episodes I'll recommend in a moment that talk more about that. But when do things become a thing, right? As you expand on that, then you need to go ahead and do a check-in and figure out where your business currently is. One of the ways you can do this is figuring out what kind of business entity you have. Now, there's the simple, I started a business, so I'm just running with it. That would be called, if it's just you in particular, that would be called a sole proprietorship. So it's just you. A lot of y'all that I coach are solopreneurs. You're like, yeah, I do the side hustle. It's like, okay, if it's a side hustle, then it's a sole proprietorship. That's fine. The next level above that would be a DBA or doing business as. Then you have the equivalent of a social security number, if you want to call it that here in the States, that that is like your business identity. This is my business. And it starts to have a separate identity from who you are as an individual with your own social security number, identification, and so forth. It's a little bit of separation. The next level of separation will be an LLC or limited liability corporation. And with that, then you're like, okay, this company is over here. This is my company. This is me as an individual. If some stuff goes down, like if I end up getting sued or ends up being some weird tax liability with the company that I built, then y'all can't touch this over here. And we're getting more into trademark, then ends up being if someone tries to use that company and say, oh yeah, we're gonna do the same company as so and so, then there's actual legal recourse that you have. I am not a lawyer. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm still learning. And one of the fantastic parts about this is you can keep learning too. And there's business decisions that I made that in the long term probably weren't that great, but they did what they needed to do in the short term. And there's other times where I got so aggressive as far as building up the business that and wanting the idea of the business that I wasn't working on the business itself. So you can fall into either camp. Consider this a check-in now with the type of business that you have, how you're looked at as a from the government standpoint, which is what we're really talking about, as far as it being a solo not solopreneurship, sole proprietorship. It sounds so similar. A sole proprietorship, um, a DBA doing business as an LLC, and there's also other options within that. As you go further and further, figure out where you fit in there, and it might be worth doing a check-in. One recommendation that I would have is to get some support. One place you can get support is from a new company I heard about over the past year. It's called Doula. Reminds me of the doulas that I know that are helping birth babies and healthfully into the world. Shout out to all the doulas I know. Doula. This one is Doola. It's simply this: you have a business that you want to start, or you've already started a business, and you recognize that you've hit a cap. You're like, yeah, I was doing this sole proprietorship. I really need to do a DBA. I was doing DBA. I really need an LLC. I was doing an LLC, but I really want to do an S corp or even a B corp because I really want to have almost like a nonprofit status in the world. All those different details. This is the place that will hook you up with it. I end up getting a special deal with them. So check them out and they will help you get things settled. Also, too, if you're overseas or you're trying to establish yourself as a business owner here in America, but you are just new here or you're still trying to get here, they can actually help you with that too. So if you're trying to, I've been born and raised in America, so there's certain things that I understand just because I've been in this environment. If you're overseas or if you're a new immigrant, they will actually specifically help guide you as far as what regulations you need to work with. So shout out to the immigrants in my family. Much love to y'all and shout out to all immigrants. You know, we're building. We're building. So if we're about the building, this is a great partner to work with. Shout out to Dula. I appreciate y'all for sure. If you want to go deeper into business entities and taxes and things of that nature, again, here in America, it's tax season, so we're about halfway through February. Taxes are usually wrapped up in the middle of April. So it is go time for shout out to all my CPA folks. I know y'all are busy right now. Live Q&A, tax and money tips for creatives. One of my favorite episodes, actually. And it breaks down some of the stuff that I just talked about, but even deeper. It's a whole episode on it. Be sure and check it out. In what ways are you protecting your business? Um, do you have kind of an ad hoc business, which we all start with? No judgment. Me too. Do you have kind of an ad hoc business, but you've got enough money coming in or you've got enough structure where you're like, you know what? Let me file that trademark because my name is kind of hot. Let me get that trademark going before I go any further. Or did you say, yeah, that LLC is looking good? Are you working in a business which I don't have this issue as much, so it's not as much of a again problem for me? Are you working in a business where you're liable to get sued? If you're working in a business where you're liable to get sued as far as your startup or your company, yeah, what are you doing to protect yourself? Again, some of the links below will help with that. But how are you working it out? I'd love to hear it. I know some of my coaching clients kind of struggle with that because the kind of work they do is highly litigious and they're trying to make sure they protect themselves. Keep that in mind, particularly with it being a new year. This would be the year to get yourself together because, yeah, it's wild out there. I'm entrepreneur coach Damon Brown. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV. I'm live every Wednesday at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. If you're working to protect your business entity, let us know what's working, what's not working. How are you going to level up this upcoming year? We would love to hear. I didn't mean to rhyme, but here we are. How do I protect my business while traveling? If you're new to entrepreneurship, you might not be up on this. For many of us, when we leave, then the business will stop, particularly if we're doing solopreneurship, unless we do the special provisions with it. Now, picture this, but then something happens when you're traveling or things get really complicated, then the business is going to stop forever, if not a long time. Excuse me. So there are provisions that you can take to make sure your business is protected while you're traveling. One of the first things is to make sure that other people have access to the stuff that you're doing. Now, this is something that I continuously work on. As you tell by my side, I'm still working on it, but make sure that things can still function in some form even while you're gone. Now, if you have virtual assistant and stuff like that, I think that's a good step in the right direction. But what I mean is literally someone being able to access it. With me and my former partner, when we set up our will and testament and so forth, that was part of the discussion, particularly when we had kids. That was part of the discussion is, all right, well, where's your, at the time it was Facebook, it's a long time ago. I've been on Facebook for years, but it's like, okay, well, we need these passwords or that passwords and ever. It's just so you're good. It's like, how do you handle it? What about your bank account over here? Can anyone else access that? Things like that. Yes, that's a life and death situation, but travel can be the same. I love to travel. I'm not trying to discourage you from traveling at all. I would be the biggest hypocrite in the world. As they say today, my passport stays on pivot probably until COVID, and I slow down quite a bit, and of course having my little kids. But my point isn't that you shouldn't travel. My point is that you should be prepared to travel. And if you're going to do that, then you need to make sure that stuff is aligned. When we travel, we do take the risk of something happening while we're traveling, whether it's physically um, or something ends up happening as far as with a government thing or whatever. Or, we just end up stranded somewhere and we still have bills due and things of that nature. So it's important that we try to protect ourselves in that way. So, number one, making sure someone else has access to your stuff. The second part of it is making sure that before you get on the plane or train, automobile, whatever, that you have some type of system in place for the business to function, even if you're not able to get back in time. So whether it's in the case of Bring Your Worth TV, having episodes scheduled ahead of time, whether it's making sure that you have a clear line of communication with other people that can keep your business going. And these things come into play a lot, particularly as we get older. Again, I'm middle aged, so as we get older, as we have other people that are dependent on us, in my case, my kids, it might be your parents or other folks, we need to make sure that stuff is going. Also, too, when it comes to making sure that our business continues to move, because it's not just the individual people that might be dependent on us. Again, I have my two beautiful little kids. They're dependent on me. Something happens to me, of course, I have my former partner, but I still want to hold it down for us. So there's that, but it's also your obligation and your commitment to the community, the people that you're serving. Will your business continue to operate? I've done several episodes about how to operate and keep your business going while you're traveling. In fact, in the replay, I'll go and put the links below. So if you're watching this on the replay, see the links below. But there's one that talks about how Brene Brown continued to run her business, even though she was taking a sabbatical for several months. Of course, she's multimillionaire, probably a seven-figure business, if not eight figures. She's killing it. Shout out to Brene Brown. But my whole point is that you can also do that as a solopreneur or being on your own. And that comes from having systems in place to make sure that your people are provided for. That's why my calendar appointments are automated. That's why when you go to danebrown.net, then you can automatically go and buy one of my books or book some time for us to do a coaching consultation. I don't need to get the email and then figure it out. It's a lot of it, 99% of it is automated. I would highly recommend thinking about those things. And again, in the replay, I'll put a link in there, or you can just look up Brene Brown Business over at bringyourworth.tv. You can learn more about that. When it comes to actual items that help, these are some of my favorite items that I rock with. The Delta Gold Card, you might be like, it's a credit card. What are you talking about? Number one, I'm a big Delta fan. Shout out to Delta. A lot of the decisions that they've made, ethically and otherwise, I appreciate. So far, I'm very much rocking with them for several years now. Now, there's the basic perks as far as, yes, you can go and get a check in at least one bag for free. I think it might be two bags now because they changed it recently. Two bags for free. Bags are $50 a piece if you check them in. If you travel a lot, especially with little kids, you know the deal. Just save the money. This does have a nominal annual fee, but I think it might even be cheaper than the bag fee at this point. So you take one flight, you got that back. Then, of course, there's the simple perks as far as getting more frequent flyer miles and also being able to board a little bit faster. The product protection, one, and the flight protection will save your hide. Product protection means that if you buy something with this and something happens to it, like, say, a fire, like a hurricane, like a random thing that happens that is nature made, not not like your kid throwing it in the toilet, but but something that's a little bit out of our control, then there's actually purchase protection. I think that's what they call it, purchase protection, to help you with that. And it's up to a certain amount. And I think you might even be able to increase the amount depending on what you're doing or what version of this card you get. There's a gold version, there's the platinum version, which I have now, and then there's the reserve version, which is the super fancy version of it. They're all great. I'll leave it at that. So number one, you get the purchase protection for that. I think it also includes, excuse me, if you end up buying something and then you end up finding it for a cheaper price, they might give you a credit for it, something like that. But then you have the travel protection. This means that if you're over in Morocco, if you're in Japan somewhere, if you're down in Bogota, Colombia, places that I've been, that in some of those places, like, when I was in Morocco, I was, I've done episodes with it. Me and my former, we're riding camels in Morocco in the middle of the Sahara. There was no cell service. And if something was happening, I didn't have Bring Your Worth TV at the time, this is several years ago, but if something was happening with my business, I wouldn't even know. If something happened to me, y'all wouldn't know. My point is this: those things like travel protection allow you to cancel the hotels, to cancel the flights, to even get a little bit of insurance, health insurance, but we'll get into that in a second, but health insurance and other things to make sure that you're okay when you're on the road. If your business requires you to be on the road, I'm a public speaker. If you can probably tell by my about that I talk, I'm a public speaker, and then I go to conferences like the TED conference, and yeah, I can be all over the place. Sometimes I'm right at home in my office, like right now, but other times I'm all over the place. If your business is dependent on you getting your behind on a plane or a train or an automobile, how are you getting coverage for that beyond just your health coverage? Hopefully you have that, but also like just for stuff that happens. Remember there being a death in the family, and like suddenly all these plans need to be rearranged. And I mean, could rely on the goodness of, a hotel or airplane chain. Okay. Again, there's some that I rock with. Or you can have some type of actual protection, whether it's insurance or something like the gold card or one of the Delta cards, where it's like, no, I'm going in a different direction. I can't. This person just passed away. No, I'm not going right now. So I need to cancel everything. I think with the higher cards, they actually allow you to have a concierge. If I remember correctly, a concierge that will help you with that as well. Luckily, I did not need that. So I'm glad to be ignorant on it. But definitely check it out. Again, I've been rocking with Delta for probably going on a decade now. Have had wonderful service with them. And yeah, I would highly recommend it. If you end up rocking with another airline or what have you, be sure and look, as Jizza says in his classic song, you have to read the labels. Definitely read the labels if you're going to get it from another credit card issuer or another airline or even a hotel or whatever. Be sure and read the labels and understand what they will cover and what they will not cover. Please do. Like, please don't click on this just because it's affiliate and you might get a bonus from it. Like, please read the labels, make sure it's good for you. Another recommendation is Runway Health. You might have heard me mention them over the last year or two. They're fairly new. I'd say they came out about a year and a half ago, at least when I heard about them. Really simple. It's health insurance a la carte for solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. That's it. Not any deeper than that. I wish something like this existed when I became an entrepreneur many years ago. In fact, before I became an entrepreneur, when I was just a freelancer. Speaking of freelancing, I talked about at the top of the show. Shout out to Catherine and the Institute of Independent Journalists conference happening in a couple weekends. Again, the links are below if you missed the beginning of the episode. But yeah, excuse me, I would have killed, no pun intended, to have something like this. Now, I have family coverage and other things, so I'm good. But if you are where I was, say decade or two ago, you're on your own. You don't have any dependents, so you don't need the massive insurance, but you need some type of coverage when you're, say, flying by yourself to Bogota. Again, shout out to Bogota. You might want some coverage. Runway Health is a good opportunity for you to get that. Be sure and check them out. I think there's a discount with the link that I have there, but shout out to them. Man, some of the I have to tell you, me being a longtime freelancer, some of the amazing stuff that we have now, it literally would have saved my hide once I started when I started many, many moons ago. And five secrets to change and transition. You might be asking, Naaman, why are we talking about change and transition? I thought we were talking about travel and all these other things. I think it's important to end on this one, and I'll make this the video that you guys go to after you're done watching this on the replay. Excuse me. But what's great about this is we had a live show a handful of weeks ago. Obviously, it's episode 393. So I think it was in fall of last year. One of the reasons why we don't back up our stuff, one of the reasons why we aren't working on the health insurance, one of the reasons why we don't have the hard drives that are an alternative avenue for us to have access to our things is that we don't think things will happen. Like, we don't. If we did, as someone said, if we thought about all the things that could happen, we would never leave the house. Some people have chronic illnesses that are around this. So blessings to y'all. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The thing is that we need to have some level of awareness. And the important thing is that the awareness isn't stagnant. It's not like suddenly, it's not like you start a business at your kitchen table, which I've started several. I'm looking at my kitchen table and my kitchen right now. You start a business on your kitchen table, and then a few months later, you have a quarter million users. You start a business on your kitchen table, and years later, another company's talking about acquiring you. Like, I've been in these situations. Perhaps you have too. What we often don't realize is how quickly things are moving, how quickly things are changing. And when we do recognize how quickly things are changing, we can be in denial about it. Yeah, I'll go and deal with that later. I need to get this stuff done now. I'll deal with. I'm not going to forget about that. And then we forget about it, myself included. There's no judgment or, you know, treatise coming from me saying you should do better. No, like that's, as I talk about in today's newsletter, enjoydamon.me, often that could be how humans operate. What we want to do is try to be aware of those transitions. There are business decisions that I made last year. Cannot wait to share them with you. I cannot right now. Maybe be a future episode. But there's all these behind the scenes business decisions that I made last year that very few people know about, just my closest confidence. Confidants that have confidence in me. But very few people know about them. But I was like, no, this is the time to do it. This is the season that I'm in. We're going to make this decision. No, this is it. But it required me slowing down. And 2024 was a year of slowdown for me in a good way. So I slowed down enough to be like, oh, I wanted to do this, but now I want to do this when I was here. I recognized that I want to do this when I was here, and suddenly I'm here, and it never got done. That's what I'm getting at. That's what this whole episode is about. You're here right now. You see the future, and then you blink, and you're way past the future, and whatever you said you're going to get done hasn't gotten done. Again, this isn't a setup to beat you up. I definitely did beat myself up last year, but I recognized that things slowed down enough where I was like, wait a second, I'm supposed to get that settled, but all these other things are moving, and I totally forgot about it, or I put it on the back burner. The key to this is knowing how to handle that change and transition as it's happening, so then you can recognize the new world that you're in. But that requires slowing down just a little bit, just here. I coach entrepreneurs all day. I know you don't want to hear about slowing down, but do my best Robert De Niro impression. Just a little bit. Just just a hair. Just a hair. Slow down just a hair. This episode, Five Secrets to Change Transition, will help you figure out where and why you need to slow down. And once you're able to slow down a little bit, then you're able to make these decisions and think with clarity. Like again, me having this conversation with y'all today, I know I'm like, all right, the next purchase I'm going to make for my business, I'm going to upgrade my hard drive because I can get by, like Talib Kweli with the hard drive setup I have. But I'm like, it's getting a little long in the tooth. And I'm having so much fun having long episodes with y'all. That means more and more gigabytes in my computer. I need to upgrade. And so slowly things start to upgrade. But you notice slowly. If we're stuck in the patterns that we've always done, that we might not realize when we need to back up our stuff, when we need to upgrade, when we need to get to the next level. This episode will hopefully help. I'll either make this episode the one that you go to after this, or I'll do the taxes one. But likely it'll be this one because I think we've talked about the practical. Let's get into the psychological. How do you protect your business while you're traveling? Do you worry about that? Do you feel like you're on the edge when you travel? Are you relaxed enough to travel? And what decisions can you make based on the stuff we talked about today to make it a little bit less traumatizing for you to be on the road and not have immediate access to your business? And requiring you have immediate access to your business, is that the very thing that's burning you out? Big questions. My entrepreneurial coach, Damon Brown. I'm here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You're watching Bring It Worth TV here live on Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free. And my latest book, the complete Bring It Worth collection, is available. I don't know where the accent came from. Available wherever books are sold. You can actually listen to it for free right now at bringitworth.tv. It is my gift to y'all. Let me know in the comments. How do y'all feel when you're traveling? Do you feel like things are out of control? Do you feel like that you can't stop? We've done whole episodes on this, but feel free to jump into the comments. Let me know how y'all feeling and how you're dealing with it or not dealing with it. And maybe there's insight you can give to other people, and maybe there's insight that other people can give you. Until next time, maybe you can always bring your worth. You can always build from now. Take care of yourselves and others.